So Chaz Lanier, 19.7 points per game on crazy efficiency a year ago with North Florida. Fifth-year senior in the transfer portal. He's taking a look at the G League right now after being invited to their combine. We will keep track of what Lanier does. Again, Tennessee, Maryland, BYU, three other schools that are also, I wouldn't say heavily involved, but right there in the thick of it. Curious to see if Kentucky makes a move. We talked about him as a transfer portal option. I would love to have him on the team. But let's rank the top 5 options in the transfer portal for Kentucky basketball, in my opinion. And if you want to leave yours in the comments below, you can absolutely do that. At LockedOnUK on Twitter is where you can find me if you want to give me your list. Let's start here at the top with what I have to assume is everybody's number one, and that is Jaxson Robinson, the transfer from BYU. Right now, Robinson currently going through the NBA draft process, trying to decide whether or not he stays in the draft or enters the transfer portal. He had not originally entered the transfer portal when Mark Pope had been hired at Kentucky, and now he has decided to enter the portal, and he is looking at a variety of schools. Don't really know what the decision is going to be from Robinson. It's been pretty quiet on that front. Is he going to go back to BYU? Is he going to come to Kentucky? Is he going to go elsewhere? Is he going to stay in the draft? We're not quite sure, and we talked about that on a recent episode. I think it's okay right now if Kentucky has a little bit of a break in the action, waiting to see what Robinson does. Now, what Robinson does in the transfer portal, how he interacts with the transfer portal, I think is going to dictate Kentucky's successes from here on out. Because right now, I think if Kentucky had their pick of the litter and they were able to just select kids and they just were like, you're committed, you're coming to play for us, they would pick Robinson, they would pick one more scorer, and then they would probably pick a depth piece in the front court, and then that would be it. That would be wraps. But they don't have that choice. These kids are going to take time. They're going to decide where they're going to want to go, and it's going to be a process, right? You're going to see things over time start to shift in the portal outside of Robinson if Kentucky wants to wait on him. And we saw this a couple of seasons ago, actually. Well, no, it was a season ago with Oscar Tshiebwe and Kentucky. The Wildcats wanted a variety of players, or could have gone after a variety of players, I should say, in the portal. They could have pursued them way harder than they did. But because of the fact that Tshiebwe could have come back to college, Kentucky sat there on their hands and waited. And they let several prospects float on by. A couple of them I wanted, and upon further reflection, I'm kind of glad Kentucky did not end up getting. I'll talk about those players today. You can probably guess who they are. But I think this is a little bit of a different situation this year. While Kentucky may want to wait on Robinson, and while he's not necessarily the Oscar Tshiebwe to this team, or at least he's not projected to be, or wouldn't be projected to be, I still think he's a very good player. And so I don't know what Kentucky's patience level is at right now with Robinson in the portal, right? Because what they could end up doing is they could end up waiting, and they could do what I just said, which is just they're going to end up passing on some kids that they could have gotten that would have been really good because they wanted to wait for Robinson, and they end up not getting what they wanted at all. Or they could do with what they did with a couple of kids that they've already added to their roster, most notably Brandon Garrison, right? Over a guy like Great Osabor, where Osabor has a few other visits to take, and Garrison was right there on the block for Kentucky to take, and Garrison was interested in coming to Kentucky, so Kentucky decided, instead of waiting to decide if Osabor was going to even come here or not to play with Amari Williams, he decided, hey, you know what? Pope's like, we're going to go get Garrison. We're going to go get the former McDonald's All-American. We're going to like him as a multi-year prospect, and he's going to be in our front court. Cool. Awesome. Sweet. He's going to back up Amari Williams, and then Andrew Carr's going to play the 4. And that's where we're at with that. Could they do the same thing with Robinson? Could they sit here and say, okay, well, Robinson's really good, but he's also looking at maybe going back to BYU, or maybe he's looking at or transferring to goodness knows where. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up going after somebody at that power forward spot like Achor Achor, who will be just as effective statistically. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what Mark Pope and company are going to do, but I think that we would all agree Robinson, with his height, with his shooting, with his playmaking, I think that he would be at the top of Kentucky's board right now if they were just picking whoever they got to pick. The second player I think here you could rank is Chaz Lanier. In my opinion, I think he would be the second best option for Kentucky to get. If we're looking at filling out the power forward position and we're looking at filling out the shooting guard role with somebody that's a bucket getter, I think Robinson and Lanier would be the two players that I would go to first. If I got to pick who I wanted to, those would be my guys. And you may say, does Robinson end up actually playing the 4 at 6'7"? Couldn't he play small forward? The answer is yes, Jaxson could do that. But if you go and look at KenPom, and I tweeted out this earlier with a screenshot of the different rotations, he actually primarily played at the 4 for the Cougars a season ago. He was a power forward at 6'7", 190. So he would probably end up playing more of 4 than anything and could slide up to the 3. But because you have guys like Brea and Owe on the roster now, you can like slide them up to the 2 if you want to, slide Robinson up and be a really tall, really physical 6'7", 3. Who plays kind of like a tweener guard forward position anyway. I don't know. Kentucky could do a lot of different things with it. But Robinson could slide up. He could be versatile. Lanier, I think, would be more specifically for that shooting guard role. I think he would be that bucket getter at the 2 that would play off ball with somebody like Butler, like a Carissa. I think Butler, by the way, some of you have mistaken some words that I've said about Butler and Carissa. I think Butler's going to start. Let me be clear. I thought I was clear on that. I think right now Butler's starting. I think Carissa will come off the bench. That is just my guess. We'll have to wait and see. Kentucky could start them both. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I think Lanier would be somebody excellent to bring in at the 2. Pair him with Robinson. Kentucky's roster would be pretty much set. They could get one more player through the portal, and that could kind of be wrapped, but he would be nothing more than a depth piece, I would assume. These are my guys right here. Robinson, Lanier. Who are the other 3 players? So we've talked about Lanier. We've talked about Robinson. I think those are the 2 guys that I would be most excited about for Kentucky. Who are the other 3 players in my top 5? Well, let's start here with the kid I mentioned a second ago out of Samford, Achor Achor. Now, I don't know what he's going to do in the portal. I don't know where he's leaning. I don't know if he even is leaning anywhere now to start. But Achor was an excellent player for the Bulldogs a season ago. Really, really, really good catch and shoot player at 6'9". Was averaging double-digit figures for them, was their leading scorer. Another guy where you talk about him and you look at him and say, that's just primarily a bucket getter. That's what he does. Now, at 6'9", Achor also could rebound a little bit. I shouldn't say just rebound a little bit. He could rebound quite effectively at 11.2% offensive rebound rate. He could block shots at a high percentage as well. I mean, he just did a little bit of everything, but it was the scoring that really got you excited. Achor would play power forward full stop. He would be a really tall physical forward that you could pair with Andrew Carr and make that a lethal front court. Brandon Garrison, Amari Williams, Andrew Carr, and Achor Achor. Those guys would be excellent together. He would be my 3rd pick right now. He would be my 3rd option if I'm going down the list and picking who I want. Now, we can sit here in the comments and discuss whether or not we think Achor is better than Robinson, because statistically, Achor's just a shot better from 3. He averaged more rebounds. He's taller at the position that I think Robinson would more naturally play. We could dive into that, but I think that if we're talking upside, Robinson is an NBA prospect, and he's a more versatile prospect. I think definitely has a higher ceiling. So Achor's my 3rd player. Kadary Richmond out of Seton Hall. I know that he's looking elsewhere right now, but he's a player that I think Kentucky would do really, really well with. Last season, 15.7 points per game, 5.1 assists per contest, 7 rebounds, 2.2 steals at 6'5", 180 pounds. That would be a super, super fun shooting guard. Super fun shooting guard for Kentucky basketball. High score, can distribute the ball, somebody in the backcourt that can also pass it around. He can also play point, I think, if you wanted him to at 6'5". I don't know if Kentucky wants to do that. You can have somebody like Carissa or Butler off ball. I don't know how they want to do that rotation just because of how, I think, versatile some of these different pieces are. But Kadary Richmond, because of his height, because of the defense, because of his distribution, because of the fact that he can rebound as well, he's another player that I would love to see on this team. He makes my top 5 here. And then to round out the top 5 right now, I know I've got mixed feelings about Wooga Poplar out of Miami, but I really do think that at the end of the day, Mark Pope can turn him into a more consistent player than he was with the Hurricanes. Now, statistically, Poplar was fine. He was actually above average at Miami. He was a good shooter. He was just overall a good player and a good forward/wing type. He could also play the two, I guess. He could play anywhere between 2 through 4 if Kentucky wants to run a small ball lineup. But anyway, point being, Poplar was not the most consistent player. He had a lot of really cold nights and was a volume shooter for them last season ago. And whenever he didn't shoot particularly well, Miami suffered, despite most of the time the team significantly outshooting him. He would be one of the reasons why they kind of either struggled or lost games offensively. It's not to say he was a bad defender, by the way. He was a pretty solid defender to boot. So Poplar, I think, would be my 5th addition to this team if I had to just rank these guys, but it's Robinson, it's Chaz Lanier, it's Achor Achor, it's Kadary Richmond, and then it's Poplar. And you can talk about the other players in the portal that Kentucky could pick up, but those are my top 5 guys. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like these guys? Do you not? Would you rank them differently? Would you have any of them ranked at all? Leave all of them in the comments below.